Shabbat Shalom. The opening verse in this week's double parsha, Behar-Video, the book of Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 25, verse 2, reads as follows. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Behar Sinai lemor, ki tavo'u el haaretz asher ani noten lachem, v'shavta haaretz Shabbat laHashem. God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "When you come into the land that I give you, the land shall observe a Shabbat, a time of rest dedicated to God." Once every 7 years, God commanded the Israelites living in Eretz Yisrael to observe a sabbatical year, known in Hebrew as Shemitah. During this year-long stoppage, a cessation of all agricultural endeavors, there was to be no planting, no reaping, no harvesting. Regarding this mitzvah, Rashi asks, Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai? Why does the Torah emphasize that the law of the sabbatical year was given on Mount Sinai? Weren't all 613 commandments given on Mount Sinai? Not just this one? According to a commentary by the Lubavitcher Rabbi, the observance of the Shemitah year required great emunah, faith. If you didn't plant or harvest your farm in the 7th year, it meant that you had to have faith that God would provide, not only for the 7th year, but for the 8th year as well. After all, even though you were permitted to plant at the beginning of the 8th year, you had to first wait for the crop to grow and mature, since nothing had grown during the 7th year. Why does the Torah, in the opening verse of Parashat Behar, dafka single out this mitzvah, the sabbatical year, and emphasize that it was given at Mount Sinai? Because it was at Mount Sinai when our ancestors were given the Torah, an event, Matan Torah, that we will celebrate next week, God willing, on the holiday of Shavuot. Our ancestors' response was Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. It was at Har Sinai that our Israelite ancestors agreed to enter into a covenantal relationship with God and observe all of the mitzvot that relationship entailed, even before hearing what the exact requirements would be. That commitment, that willingness to accept God's Torah was a tremendous act of faith. According to the Rambam, Maimonides, faith, emunah, should be at the root of all Jewish practice. Each of the 13 principles of faith that Rambam articulated begin with the words Ani ma'amin, I believe. Lahavdil, a story from my days at Procter & Gamble. At a staff professional development retreat, there was a corporate training and team building exercise in which we participated, and it was called the Faith Game, also known as the Trust Fall. Every person at the retreat had to stand with his arms crossed, with everyone else in the team assembled behind him, and each member of the team had to trust the other members of his cohort by falling backward, free fall. And this act required a tremendous amount of faith that your coworkers would catch you and save you from harm, save you from falling on the ground. As you can well imagine, every person at the retreat must have experienced at least a moment of fear and anxiety as he began to fall. Undoubtedly, our biblical ancestors must also have felt fearful and anxious during the 6th year of every sabbatical cycle. Yet, they persevered and observed the mitzvah of the Shemitah year. Having just experienced over a year of a global pandemic, we can all relate to these emotions of fear and anxiety. Think about how many times over the past year you may have felt stretched to your emotional limits, whether you were fearful about your own health and the health of your loved ones, or merely anxious about the ability to secure toilet paper or cleaning products. For many people, it was their trust and their faith that enabled them to survive. And for some, It was their trust and faith that enabled them to thrive over the past year. Trust, fueled by faith in God, is an essential aspect of Judaism. But there's another concept that is also important. It's known as Hishtadlut, personal effort. Based on the Chazon Ish, Rabbi Eliyahu Eliezer Dressler teaches that each individual must find an appropriate balance between trust and personal effort, between bitachon and hishtadlut. This concept is illustrated in a midrash about a rabbi who wished more than anything to make a meaningful donation to the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. Poor and impoverished as this rabbi was, he could not afford to give anything that he felt was valuable or significant enough. But one day, while walking along the road, he came across an impressive-looking stone, and he felt that this stone would make a fitting contribution to the temple. The stone's size and its weight, however, made it impossible for the rabbi to carry it alone. He realized he would need to hire workers to lift the stone and take it to Yerushalayim. But alas, the cost of paying workers to schlep that heavy stone, for lifting it and transporting it, was more than the rabbi could afford. At that moment, when the rabbi was just about to give up, some workers passed by and offered to help transport the stone to Jerusalem for free. But on the condition that the rabbi put his own hands under the stone and help them lift it and carry it. The rabbi agreed. He bent down, put his hands under the stone, ready to lift it. And suddenly he looked, and he realized that he and the stone had been miraculously transported to Jerusalem, and the 5 men were nowhere to be seen. These were no ordinary individuals. They were angels sent by God who saw the rabbi's pure-hearted desire to make a valuable contribution to the Beit HaMikdash. But, you may ask, if these men were really angels in disguise sent by God, why was it necessary for the rabbi to put his hands under the stone and help them lift it? The answer, the nafka mina of this story, can be found in a joke that many of you, I'm sure, have heard. My son Ariel told this joke 12 years ago at his bar mitzvah service. There was once a tzaddik, a righteous man named Yitzchak. People called him Izzy for short. Izzy was very, very poor. And every year, during Aseret Yemei Tshuva, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, he would pray to God, saying, Ribono shel Olam, I really need you to help me and my family. Hashem, I have the utmost trust that you will provide. Please, this year, let me win the lottery. Every year, Izzy would repeat the same request, hoping to be able to provide for his family. But every year, nothing happened. Izzy never won the lottery. One year, Izzy had a strong feeling that this was going to be the year when God would answer his prayers, and the answer would be yes. He called out to God again between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, saying, Ribono shel Olam, I believe in you. I have the utmost faith in you. Please let me win the lottery. Please, Hashem, please. But unfortunately, Izzy didn't win. Again. This time, Izzy complained and screamed out to God, Why won't you help me, even though I believe in you and have such faith and trust in you? Why won't you let me win? At this point, a bat kol, a still small voice, came from the heavens in response to Izzy's pleas. The voice, a message from God, said, Izzy, you have to help me out here. Buy a ticket. Another joke you may have heard with a similar punchline and message. A storm descended on a small town, and the downpour soon turned into a flood. As the waters rose, a pious man named Izzy went up to his roof and prayed to Hashem for help. One of the residents of the town came up the street in a rowboat and said, "Better jump in, Izzy. The waters are rising fast. I can save you." "No, thank you," said Izzy. "I have emunah. I have faith in Hashem. God will save me." But the waters continued to rise. Izzy now raised his hands in supplication when another guy zipped up in a motorboat. "Come on, Izzy," he said. "We need you to get out of here. Jump. Jump in. I can save you." But once again, Izzy was unmoved. He said, "I shall remain. I have faith in Hashem. God will see me through this just as he has seen me get through every other crisis in my life." After a while, the flood rushed over Izzy's house as he stood up on the roof. And at that point, a helicopter descended out of the clouds and a state trooper called down to him through a megaphone. "Grab the ladder, Izzy. This is your last chance to be saved." But once again, Izzy insisted that God would save him. So the man in the helicopter reluctantly flew away. Soon, the water rose above Izzy's head, and he drowned. Ay. After he died and went to Olam Haba, the world to come, Izzy cried out to God, complaining, saying, "Hashem, I had unwavering faith in you. Why didn't you deliver me from that flood?" To which God replied, "Izzy, I sent you a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter. What more did you expect of me?" Yes, we have to have faith in God. That is necessary. But it's not sufficient. Each of us has to do our part to make our faith-inspired dreams come true. Only if we devote our own sincere efforts and energy, only with our own personal involvement, Hishtadlut, will God help us. We must roll up our sleeves and do the work, not just stand around and rely on miracles. Ein somchim al nisim. In order for us to successfully emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important for us to maintain our faith and trust in God and in our fellow human beings. But we also have to actively do our part, not just passively wait for everything to return to normal on its own. If there is nothing else we have learned over the past year plus, it's that we can't just stand around and wait for miracles or for others to do the work. Every one of us has to do our part, not only to enable the world to return to normal, but also, better yet, to make the world a better place. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Shabbat Shalom.